So, see, trade is one part of the discussions, but underlying all the trade negotiations, there are deeper concerns. You mentioned technology, you mentioned artificial intelligence. I can add mutual security concerns. Which include economic security, and we saw you mentioned the war in Ukraine, and we saw the war in Ukraine really make it was a European security problem, but it made countries of the global south extremely worried because what got affected were flows of energy, flows of fertilizer, flows of food, fundamental issues to do with their economic security. And that is why the South starts getting concerned that if there is going to be no peace in Europe, there is going to be major concerns for the rest of the world. So do these negotiations somewhere head us in that direction, help us to remove these mutual insecurities?
Look, I think, first of all, the war in Ukraine showed us that peace is not a given. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think there is no easy answer or easy solution for that war. But I hope that in the end, there will be negotiations and then a good outcome for Ukraine. So in order that it's possible to stop the war, or at least reach a ceasefire. That this war is affecting also other countries, yeah, this is also clear. But I think it also shows us that it's important to have partners, that it's important to have partners also outside of Europe. And regarding security, from my perspective, there's a lot that could be done in common or together. If you look at the fight against terror or radical Islamists, that is something that has become a big issue in Europe, and at the same time, it's something where India has similar interests. So if you look, for example, on cyber threats, cyber security, I think this is something where there's a lot of potential to cooperate, also in other areas, I think that India is a natural, strong, potential partner for Europe.
Sanjeev, your take.
So I think in this case, it's a question of trust and building long-term trust. And India is a very old civilization, and we think of friendship in a somewhat different way, which is that you stand by your friends even if sometimes they do things which you may not approve of. And you saw that in our behavior vis-a-vis Russia. We aren't very pleased about the fact that there's a war going on in Eastern Europe, but we did not abandon them. But that same level of trust will also prove to be useful to other parts of the world. If Europe sees and we build up a relationship of friendship with Europe, that would also apply to them. So I think the important thing is that there is trust, a long-term relationship, and this is not a transactional one. So therefore, this is where this business of fair trade and free trade have to basically mean the same thing within the rules, of course, of agreement. But within that, it has to be the same thing, because that's based on the idea of trust. And same thing is, by the way, true on the other side of the pond. You cannot have Canada, for example, hosting terrorists on their soil and using state power to protect them. We also have interests, and we may not be pleased if Canada does that. From our perspective, Canada is a terrorist supporting country like Pakistan.
Just of course. Your tenure, you saw a lot of major developments happening, and you spearheaded them on issues related to migration, movement of labor and capital. You spearheaded many of those. What I would ask you is, and both of you, to resolve problems which concern with the flow of labor and migration, is there not a partnership between the East and the West and the North and the South, which can help resolve these problems. And these cannot be seen as a zero-sum game. I would even dare say that the problems of the North, the problems of the West, are actually going to be resolved by solutions in the East. If is that correct?
I would agree on some parts. So
Yeah.
first of all, I think partnership is always good, and of course there's a need of working together to fight illegal migration between the West and the East and the North and the South. I disagree that only by solving the problems of the South, for example, you can stop illegal migration. From my perspective, it's important to support the South. Yeah, it's important to solve issues that are still there, but that alone will not solve the problem of illegal migration in Europe. So, from my perspective, the migration system is not functioning. Yeah. It's a huge mess in the European Union, and it's mainly the fault of the European Union and our own legislation. So the system is just not working, and it's not just because of problems in the South for people who have to leave. There are hundreds of millions of people who would see it very attractive to come to the European Union if you allow them to come illegally. Yeah, if you don't have ways to send them back immediately, if you give people the chance to decide on their own in which country to apply for asylum, that they do it in countries with the highest social standards, so that in the end, many countries in the EU have no asylum seekers at all, and some, like Austria, Germany, Sweden, have huge numbers. So this is not something that somebody else can solve. Yeah, it's not something India can solve. It's not something that could be solved in Africa or elsewhere. It's a problem created within the European Union. It's a system that is not functioning at all. And I think it's the duty of the European Union to get this under control. Second, on migration, I think, because you mentioned flow of labor, what we see at the moment is not the flow of labor. I spent 1 week a month in Abu Dhabi since I left politics, and I can tell you it's a very international place. Yeah, you have people from all around the world, and you see a lot of hardworking people contributing to the society there. Yeah. In our case, if you look at Europe, most of the people who are coming are illegal or have a refugee status. Many of them are not able to contribute to our societies. Many of them do not have a chance to find a job at all. Yeah. And of course, there's a high number of people creating trouble. Yeah. So from my perspective, we have to distinguish between the problems we are facing in the EU, mainly related to illegal migration, and the question like the flow of labor, which is a totally different story. For example, I think you in India, you have one of the 20% of the AI talent worldwide is in India. Yeah. So I think every country in the world is happy to get AI talents to work in these countries and to contribute. Yeah. But that's not what we are talking about in the EU at the moment.
Sanjeev?
Well, I'm not interested.
Closing comments.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the movement of labor. I'm much more interested in the movement of jobs to India. So, we want our best talent to stay back in India, to make those jobs and to trade. So rather than Indians moving, even legally, to the European Union, we would much rather that we build up our own capabilities in our own hubs and that those jobs move to us. So in fact, in some ways, this trade deal, if it is fair and free, would in fact allow some of this to happen without the need for large numbers of people to be sucked into the European Union, where it is difficult to assimilate them. In any case, when you're leading with such large numbers of people, picking and choosing is almost impossible, and you lose control of it. So we are in some sense offering a solution. But let us, we Indians are happy to live in India. We want a system that allows us to do those jobs while living at home. And, whether it's AI or whatever it is, and we'll come and visit you in summer when it's hot in Delhi, and have a nice vacation here.
No,
and we would like Budapest to be a nice, safe place for us to have holidays.
And I think you always have to distinguish. You always have to distinguish between talents who want to contribute somewhere, and pay taxes, probably start businesses, create jobs, also want to live in a secure place, and illegal flow of migration that is very problematic for countries and societies.
So that's a perfect place to end this. That is precisely the point we're trying to make, is that we can resolve each other's problems through these agreements. And
No, absolutely.
and reach a situation where we find the solutions to problems which both of us have. So thank you both of you for that great discussion at the Budapest Global Dialogue. It was a pleasure having both of you, and I hope our audience has enjoyed it as much as I have talking to you. Thank you so much.